Hello, Shalom Aleichem, Marhaban, Ni haoma, Bonjour, Guten Abend, Buongiorno, Kombawa, Boa noite, Justo the Tilmaer, Buenas noches, Dobry вечер, Ciao, Hyambo, Yasu. I'm the wrong hero, and there are over 2,796 languages in the world, not counting Klingon, and 7,000 to 8,000 dialects. Hi, I'm the wrong hero, and the recent film of the Roswell alien landing of 1947 has sparked renewed interest in we aliens visiting Earth. Now, the tragic mistake that these Roswell aliens committed was not knowing the proper forms and formats of greeting Earth people and interacting with them as one of them. And so, in order to remedy this great lack of proper knowledge of Earth ways, I am proposing an instructional film, which of course I'm filming right now, called Alien Etiquette. Now, I'd like to help you fellow aliens feel comfortable everywhere, the world over, whether you crash in Roswell, New Mexico and find yourself on television 47 years later, or whether you decide to break with custom and old habit and land in a crowded metropolis full of accredited scientists whose opinions can be taken at face value. You Earthmen are permitted to watch this program, but it is to intelligent aliens from outer space, such as myself, that I am addressing the principal bulk of my comments. To that end, I am determined to help my fellow extraterrestrials by translating for them some foreign expressions frequently used in the English language. First of all, wherever you sit down, you'll be wanting to be taken to the leader of the country you happen to be in. Now, if you happen to land in Japan, you can say something like, show me your Mikado, chop chop, or who's the honcho around here, fish breath? Well, of course, if you navigate through a rip in time and land before the 20th century, you might very well want to say, direct me to your shogun, my good man. Now, if you land in India, depending on where you are, and I hope you take a very good map along with you. Of course, the Rand McNally people produce a very good and comprehensive map, and there are other several reputable map makers. A subscription to National Geographic might not be out of order, so that you might learn something of the customs of the places which you intend to crash land. Preparation, remember, is all important when visiting a foreign terrain. So to land in India, depending on where you are, you might want to tell the quivering untouchable who pulls you from the smoldering wreckage of your space vehicle to, oh, take me to the guru of your ashram, or, oh, that's also good in parts of California, by the way. Or you could say to him, who the hell's the Maharaja in these parts, old bean? Or, yo, is there a nabob around here or what? Or, say there, yogi, is there a bodhisattva in the house? Now, if you happen to land anywhere in Africa, except possibly South Africa, there's a very good chance that they'll understand you perfectly if you say, where's Bwana? Then again, they might be a little touchy about the use of such a term, which of course reflects their colonial past, and you might find yourself in a loony bin or a prison cell, toot sweet. Now, depending on where you are in the Arabic world, you might want to ask if you can be directed to the nearest caliph or emir or sharif or Saywen or sheikh. However, if you are mistaken for a mirage or a hallucination, stay calm. And if you happen to be a silicon-based life form and you crash land in the desert, remember that sand is known as common silica on this planet, and the natives intend no disrespect when they walk around on it. And you'll be happy to know that in virtually every part of the world, sand is not considered edible, so you don't have any problems on that score. Now, Spanish is the loving tongue, as terrestrial bard Bob Dylan so eloquently put it. ¿Dónde está? In the Spanish world, a request, ¿Dónde está? To see the alcalde or cacique or caudillo if you're in Latin America, or generalissimo ditto, or hidalgo or jefe if you're in Mexico. All of these are acceptable, but make sure you do nothing to insult their honor, or your planet might end up at war with the Paraguay natives, or with the whistling natives of the Canary Islands. Now, you might very well end up crash landing in Australia. Australia is this gigantic ocean surrounded by, well, no, it's this like gigantic island surrounded by miles and miles of ocean. Well, the following phrase in Australia will serve you well. Good night, mate. Seems as though I've lost my way. You think you could direct me to your Prime Minister, provided, of course, you're not otherwise engaged? Now, if you end up in Europe, you might wish to ask which country you're in. There is virtually no chance you'll land in Liechtenstein, Monaco, Luxembourg, or the Vatican City. Although if you do land in the Vatican City and you're wearing a gigantic cone-shaped hat like that of the Pope, that might speed you to getting to see that inestimable high priest. In any event, you'll have only about half a dozen phrases to master if you land in Europe. In Greece, you say, Pou είναι the nearest archon, or is there a satrap in the house? In Italy, you shrug your shoulders, scratch your head, grab your crotch, and say, Come sta? Scusi, par favor. Comandare, take me to dove your duce, or if you're in Calabria, take me to your padrone, or if you end up in Sicily, take me to your capo, and there's 20,000 lira in it for you. That'll perk them right up. Now, if you end up in Turkey, you say, pardon me, Bey, but could you point me to a khan or a vizier? I'll put in a good word for you if Allah wills it. Now, in Russia, when the KGB or the modern-day equivalent thereof picks you up, deny knowing anything about the alien spacecraft that crash-landed in Red Square, killing a commissar. This is very, very important. In other parts of the former Soviet Union, it will suffice merely to say that you are not, in fact, from Russia. In Germany, ask to be taken, or say something like Forster Bürgermeister, and do not, whatever you do, refer to him as mein Führer. And resist the temptation to goose step, click your heels, or give one-armed salute such as this. Now, in Poland, ask Gdizi Hetman, or better still, give him some gold and get the hell out of there. You don't want to be in Poland, believe me. Now, they might tell you to ask a cop where the Hotel Montrouge is if you land in France. Now, don't be taken in because Montrouge means death to the police. So, otherwise, if you land in France, they might ignore you. They probably will. But if you are able to get their attention, ask them if you could talk to a Capitan. And if they dismiss you with a Gallic shrug, cross the border into Germany. Now, in the highly unlikely event that you happen to land on a Narragansett Indian reservation in the United States, ask them for their sachem. But if you say, Sachem, can I see your sachem? They'll dismiss you as an asshole tourist. So show them a little respect. Now, if you land anywhere else in the United States, for best results, say, take me to the president of ABC. And remember, when you make that network debut, a dark suit is much more telegenic than a white on pastel suit. Now finally, if you land in Canada, ask where the U.S. border is. And if you land in China, you're probably screwed. Tell them you're from North Korea and they might let you live. Now, remember, Whether you're talking to a Smith, a Lafarge, a Ferrari, a Herrero, a Schmidt, or a Smedley, whether you're seeking information from Ivan Kuznetsov, or Kowalski, or Haddad, or Magoon, or Papadopoulos, always remember that every Earth person considers him or herself an individual and will not take kindly to being called Earthling, or Terran, or Fleshapoid, or Worldling, or Globoid, or Hairless Ape, or Fuzzy Pink Thing, or Biped who lives down on the road from Alpha Centauri. Now, learn his given name and use it. It will help you resist the temptation to devour him on the spot if you have formed some form of personal link with this Earth creature. Now, most of all, avoid becoming overly familiar or referring to him as the tender one, or fleshy human thing, or earth meat. It may arouse suspicion that not all is well. Remember too that expressions which are popular on your planet may not go over so well here on planet Earth. For example, your human friends may not appreciate the wry humor of an expression like, when you deal with a primitive Earthman, keep a plutonium ray blaster handy. Now, while visiting Earth, you'll probably be hobnobbing with pretentious assholes while you're incognito, until you got such a point as you can find the leader of the planet. This is my suggestion, that instead of like asking any old jerk where the leader of his country is, you sort of try to blend in with the population for a while until you can find out what's what and who's who and where's where, and then, you know, according to be able to do that, basically you have to go to a lot of what they call cocktail parties or parties, or you have to go to places that they jocularly refer to as the watering hole, or the best and most sure route to gaining access to the leader of that planet is to counterfeit some of their money, preferably not gold bullion, but rather, I think what you should try to do is to take some sort of earth metal like silver or platinum to a place where it is exchanged for valid currency, and then use that money to go to political events. You see, at these political events, as they call them, they request that you cross their palms with silver before entering. And at these events, merely by paying a rather nominal sum, you can gain access to the local leader, and through him, perhaps even become involved in some sort of politics and eventually be elected vice president of the country. And then you'd see the president once every 6 months or so, and well, that should be plenty enough. Anyhow, you will be hobnobbing with pretentious assholes while incognito. Now, this following is a phrase book, a guide to some of common expressions used on Earth among pretentious assholes. And the meanings are approximate. I'm only attempting to give you the gist of some of these incredibly impressive buzzwords to drop into conversations. Extempore, or ad libitum, it basically means winging it. Ad nauseum, when will this ever end? Ad infinitum, please, please, when will this ever end? In seclora seclorum, oh please God, please, let this be over. Aficionado, utter fanatic. He is a golf aficionado. In other words, instead of tending his department store, he's off on the links 24 hours a day. Practically lives there. Amicus curiae. Well, literally it means friend of the court, but nowadays it means paid witness. Angstlich. A person who's angstlich is basically an intellectual. In other words, on this planet, a genius is anybody who doesn't like anything. They are angstlich. They are an intellectual. They are full of angst. Ars longa, vita brevis. Art is stupid, life is long. Well, actually, what it really means is art is long and life is short, but But take it from me. My meaning is much more to the point. Art is stupid. Life is long. Carpe diem. Well, it means seize the day, but a more common way of putting it on earth is go for it. I mean, the visceral appeal of go for it as opposed to carpe diem. You know, it's just there. Take it from me. Let's see. Carte blanche. Basically, that also means go for it, but in a more restrained way. Like, I gave him his carte blanche. It means a blank card, but the implication is, I have a blank card signed by the President of the United States that says I can do whatever I want. Cause celebre. It means a big stink, basically. C'est la vie. It's the same as que sera, sera. Basically what it boils down to is damned if you do, damned if you don't. Now, cherchez la femme. Scent of a woman. Basically what it means is follow the woman. Like whenever there's some big stink or to-do, the French suggest that you follow the woman. Actually, in the United States, that's modified somewhat as the phrase, follow the money. But in reality, what you really ought to be following in these cases is the press. Chutzpah. This is a Yiddish expression. It means balls. Cojones. It's like he's got a lot of nerve. He's got a lot of chutzpah coming here all the way from his distant star system and telling us Earth people how to run things. Well, if I could get him in a big sack and throw him to a pack of hungry wolves, I'd do it in a minute. Of course, you're not likely to run across such lowbrows if, in fact, you follow my suggestion and confine your forays among the intelligentsia to civilized places like New York and Washington, D.C. and Los Angeles and even semi-civilized places like Boston or San Francisco. By all means, avoid Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, North Carolina, South Carolina, Arkansas. Oh God, please, no, don't go to Arkansas, whatever you do. And parts of Florida are all right, mostly along the tip. And I know I've missed one. Just avoid anything south of the Mason-Dixon line and you'll be pretty solid. Washington, D.C. is okay. And that doesn't apply to places like Los Angeles, but I think you get what I'm trying to say here. I don't need to elaborate anymore. Now the phrase cogito ergo sum, it means I'm a pretty smart fella. Well, what it actually means is I think, therefore I am, which, you know, typical Earth logic. Well, you know, because I have a brain, that means my brain is everything, you know. I'll tell you, these Earth people, they have so many disgusting little beliefs and habits, and it's really horrible. Like for instance, they have this thing called the Bible. They think it's the greatest thing in the world, you know. And it depends though. The Christians have their Bible, and the Jews have their Torah, and the Arabs have the Quran, and the Hindus have the Rig Veda, and you know every religion has this sacred book, which is only sacred. You know, it's supposed to be universal, and yet only their religion considers it sacred. But the Christians with their Bible are pretty obnoxious sometimes, and they will sometimes, occasionally, not so much among the intelligentsia, praise God, but among others, they will quote large passages of this book as if you are intimately aware of its every verse. Hence, woe be the way of the transgressor, Ezekiel 5:17. Now, when that happens, just say something like, yea, verily, and Ezekiel 8:3. Chances are they won't know what the hell you're talking about and they'll let it go. Now, cognoscenti, basically means a know-it-all. It's supposed to mean somebody who's cognizant, who is one of the cognizant ones. In other words, with our 15th level brains, we have a hard time understanding these puny humans with their 5, 6, and 7 level brains. But, well, it's not so much that we can't understand them, we just can't understand how they can function with only 3 distinct levels of intellectualization, whereas we have at least 5, I'm hoping 5, and of course in my case I have 8 distinct levels of intellectualization. Now, on Earth, those 3 levels of intellectualization are very important to know about if you don't already, and if you don't, you shouldn't really be coming here. But anyway, there's the lizard brain, and it basically regulates light and dark. That's how they sense whether to go to sleep or whether to wake up. And there's the mammalian brain, and that's responsible for making them warm-blooded and enabling them to bear live young and whatnot. And of course, then there's the primate brain. They call it the primate brain because they believe it's the first brain. They believe they are the first among animals. Well, we all know that the dolphins are far more intelligent, but unfortunately, they're too smart to want to run things. Just so long as they're left alone, they're happy. So the primates, they consider themselves, like the first in all of the order of the animal kingdom. And the primate brain enables them to make tools and to talk and to laugh and to cry and to make speeches. And I have adapted myself to their primate brain sufficiently that I am capable of making a speech on occasion. And cry de coeur, or cri de coeur, cry of the heart. Basically what it amounts to is a rebel yell. And a rebel yell, nobody really knows what a rebel yell is, by the way, but it's something like, something like that. Okay, décolletage, that means your knockers are hanging out of your dress if you're a woman, a mammalian woman. The female of the mammalian species has mammary glands. That's what makes them mammals. There are these enormously overdeveloped sweat glands that hang pendulously from their chest region. Now, it's considered very impolite to stare at these, unless, of course, the woman is wearing décolletage and her mammary glands are hanging out like that. Then it's okay to take a quick, admiring peek and smile wanly, something like, and so that's what that is. And it's important to know about because you are impersonating an Earth female, which on the one hand is difficult because there are a great many more rituals among the Earth females than there are among the males that must be adhered to if you are to successfully impersonate them. So I wouldn't recommend doing this unless you've mastered Earth studies. But if you are, in fact, impersonating an Earth female, it's very important to know what the word décolletage is. Earth men, the thing is, they're all different. And so, basically, you can act as weird as you want, and people won't immediately suspect that you might be some sort of weird alien. Unless, of course, you go around taking gigantic bites out of people's arms with teeth the size of ice picks. But anyway, déclassé. That's basically a bum. De facto. Real conditions versus unenforceable laws. They, like, for example, the de facto speed limit in Massachusetts is 75 miles an hour. Of course, the de jure speed limit is supposedly 55. But if you do, in fact, manage to successfully pilot an Earth vehicle called an automobile upon what they call their freeways, then you are well advised to utilize the de facto speed limit of 75 miles an hour. They have 3 lanes on their superhighways. One is called the slow lane, one is called the travel lane, and one is called the passing lane. The slow lane and the travel lane are of no interest to you. You want to be in the passing lane. And to be in the passing lane, you must never let your speed drop below 75 miles an hour. And in fact, 85 miles an hour is considered de rigueur. And in fact, that leads us to our next definition, de rigueur, which means you have to do it. Déjà vu. The expression déjà vu means your face is familiar. In other words, you say, oh, haven't I met you somewhere before? Someone will say, and you'll say, well, I have a feeling of déjà vu about this encounter. Or if you're among not the intelligentsia, but just the ordinary garden variety American, you say something like, "Oh, we went to different schools together," or "Your face is familiar, but I can't place the name." That's always a safe one, you see, because you wouldn't say something like, "Your name is familiar, but I can't place the face." Well, it doesn't make much sense. It doesn't tell you anything. See, oh, and if you want to find out some guy's name, or you say, "Oh, I don't believe we've had the pleasure of meeting, Mr." It's very important to get that thing going there, because if you don't, "I don't believe we have met, Mr." That has a totally different meaning, and it's going to make people think you're kind of odd. So, or if you just say something like, "Pleased to meet you, Mr." Now hold out your hand. You see, this is an ancient Earth custom. When Earthmen were no longer basically little more than hairy apes, and they began to put on clothing to keep them warm, they had a penchant for concealing gigantic clubs and rocks upon their person, and braining unsuspecting strangers with them. And so the Earth custom arose of extending your hand in such a manner so to assure your potential adversary that you mean him no immediate harm. Of course, and it's always the right hand, because many Earthmen are right-handed, meaning that they favor their right hand. Of course, if you happen to be, like most aliens, ambidextrous, you can hold out your right hand and reach for that ray blaster concealed in the small of your back in the other. Just as they're reaching over to shake your hand, boom, you blow their face off. But make sure that your weapon is primed and ready to go, because if it isn't, well, I think they will not look very kindly on you thrusting a ray blaster in your face which fails to go off. The consequences would be very bad for you. Now, dernier cri means the latest fad. Earth people have a very short attention span. Their short-term memory is approximately 7 seconds. Their long-term memory is approximately 2 weeks. And so the latest fad generally lasts about 2 weeks. There is a staging platform for it, which is about a 1 week's duration. The fad is full-blown for 2 weeks, and then there's a tailing off period of anywhere from a week to 6 months as it percolates, first from California to the East Coast, and also from, say, an upper class to a lower class, or from an upper demographic age bracket to the lowest demographic age bracket. Although, occasionally, the very youngest children will have their own fad, which will percolate upwards to the older children and the children of a larger growth, which is my favorite term for the adults on this planet. There is this creature named Barney, who is intended to represent a purple prehistoric lizard. You will find much talk of Barney. Do not be offended by this in any way. It merely means that the people who are discussing this creature are the doting parents of a preschool toddler. Now, the trope, the straw that broke the camel's back. Deus ex machina is a cornball plot device. Like, Earth literature, it's still in the most primitive of stages, and whenever they couldn't figure out how to resolve a plot, like, well, we can't have them get married, they're both guys. We can't kill them off because we want to make a sequel. I know, we'll end it with a Deus ex machina, a god from the machine. Now, one time I saw a Steven Spielberg television show in which a fighter pilot is crippled and forced to land without landing gear. And of course he is a cartoonist, and so he draws gigantic cartoon wheels and wills them onto the bottom of the airplane and is thus saved. Which is really the worst piece of dreck I've ever seen. And as a matter of fact, that leads us to our next word, dreck, which basically means shit. Earthmen will, in times of irritation, refer to fecal matter, and in times of great irritation, they will refer to their deity. For example, if they get if they get a parking ticket, they might say something like, shit. But if they go there and they find out their car's missing and they get that they've been towed, then they'll go, Jesus Christ! So these are things to remember. Of course, it is not wise to use the oath Jesus Christ in the presence of Southern fundamentalist Baptists or persons of Judaic ancestry whom you are attempting to impersonate. They will not look very kindly upon your use of this oath, in neither case. Since, of course, to the Southern Baptists, taking the word of their Lord God in vain is considered to be in extremely poor taste, and among persons of Judaic ancestry, shouting out the name of their number one heretic of their faith is somehow also not in very good taste, as I discovered much to my dismay. Dulce et decorum est pro patria mori. It basically means be all that you can be, which is kind of odd because what it really means is it is fitting and proper to die for one's country. All of the advertisements on this planet for the, or at least in this country, the United States, for their armed forces, all have as their slogan, be all that you can be. And basically, what they're really saying is it is fitting and sweet to die for one's country, which, of course, only a politician could have come up with that one. But anyway, echt. Echt means it's really real. Versus, of course, all of the fake real stuff that is so prevalent these days. Épater le bourgeois, épater le bourgeois. I have to work on my earth pronunciations. But if you mispronounce these expressions, don't feel too bad. The worst that will happen is that people will think you're a mere social climber and will never suspect you of being a skillfully versed alien. I might say that Earthmen aren't really very paranoid about the aliens in their midst. There are some few individuals who are generally dismissed as being schizophrenic, who are in fact convinced of the fact that we aliens have totally infiltrated their planet. But for the most part, most Earthmen, they're not expecting to run into an alien in their everyday course of events. So anyway, épater la bourgeois means screw the neighbors. Well, basically what it really means is to shock the bourgeoisie, which you're not advised to do in this country. Some mild, semi-graphic titillation is permitted on certain occasions, such as the Ricky Lake talk show, which airs daily at 4 p.m. But for the most part, it's not considered to be very nice to actually shock the bourgeoisie. One may speak of doing so. One may speak of events whose effect is to do so, particularly at these cocktail parties of the intellectual lloyds. But for the most part, it's not something you should actually attempt to put into practice, say by pulling down your pants at high noon on the busiest street in New York City. Although in New York City, they wouldn't really notice that much. It would make it much more of a sensation in a semi-civilized backwater like Boston or San Francisco or a subarctic lumber village like Minneapolis. Excuse me, I have adopted the earth habit of yawning to oxygenate my brain. It is very rude, by the way, to yawn in somebody's face. The methodology wherein one stifles a yawn is basically a clenching of the jaw as you try to restrain yourself from yawning like that. So instead of like doing that, you go, but try not to make the noise that accompanies that motion. If you must yawn, at least attempt to avert your gaze. Because by yawning in someone's face, you are basically saying, you are so boring, I could snore. You are so stupid, I could scream. It is not a good idea to go ah! in front of an Earth person, although that may very well be the custom on your planet. The thing about the Earth people is that in former days they did not communicate by means of the spoken word or even the written word. They basically knew each other so well, caught together as they were in their tribal bands, that they didn't need to communicate, and so they did not need to lie. The very first word spoken by an Earthman was almost certainly a lie. With the ability to speak comes the ability to tell untruths. And Earth people are very hung up on this thing called etiquette and the pleasant, palatable lies, the pleasing untruths, which create the lubrication for, and they prevent social friction. So no matter how offensive or patently stupid an Earthman behaves, it is not permitted to tell him in no uncertain terms just how patently idiotic he really is. No, instead, one greets such incredibly despicable breaches of manner with a stoic silence, at least insofar as one is able to do, or one shows one's displeasure by briskly turning on one's heels and leaving the room. Or if you get a phone call from somebody you don't like and you're only one of 100,000 people who does not have an answering machine, you simply say, sorry, I can't talk now, bye, and you hang up on them. Well, that's actually considered to be dreadfully rude, but it's not as rude as saying, I don't want to talk to you now, I hate you, bye. So, you know, it's like one step above that, and you can't do that. You are well advised to get an answering machine if you establish residency on Earth. It is not only an admirable way of screening your calls, but it also impresses people with your importance because they all know you're home, but that you are, of course, far too busy to answer the phone. Far too busy watching the episode of your favorite sitcom to answer the phone, for the most part. Now, esprit de corps, let's see, esprit de corps, esprit de corps. It's basically a mob mentality. It means the spirit of the corps. You know, I'm going to fight for the corps, I'm going to do right for the corps. But it's basically just a mob mentality. But they won't say that. The Earthmen are very sensitive of viewing themselves as a collective, as the mob, and they will in fact call themselves esprit de corps. We have a certain esprit de corps, je ne sais pas. Exempli gratia. I'm sorry, exempli gratia. It's a very, very pretentious way of saying, for instance, for example, like, that's what most people say. They say like. Well, you know, I don't think that the government has been telling us the truth about the aliens. Like those Roswell aliens, for example. Whereas a more refined intellectual person would say something like, there are a great many things that the government has been concealing from us. Exempli gratia. Primo, the Roswell aliens. Ex nihilo, or ex nihilo, depending upon whether you learned your Latin in a secular venue or whether you learned it in a religious one. Well, I follow the religious Latin pronunciation, and so I say ex nihilo. And that means, well, basically it means bullshit. Well, what it really means is out of nothing. Like, why, he created his business ex nihilo. Or he came up with his philosophy ex nihilo. But of course a lower, crasser individual will say something like, that's bullshit. Bullshit is bullshit and that's bullshit. A faux pas. Well, a less refined individual would say, well, I sure pulled a boner on that one. But as a matter of fact, the more refined and sensitive individual would say something, oh, I fear that was a dreadful faux pas I committed. Fin de siècle. Fin de siècle. It's a very important term for you to know in this, the end of this sentence, because the century is ending. Basically, it means the end of the century. Let's see, or it means the end times. Basically, excuse me, you're so boring. I hope that, oh, and the problem with yawning in an Earth venue is that yawning is considered contagious. Like, if I bore you, if you bore me, then I bore you, basically. So I hope I didn't spark off a massive yawning. Of course, it occurs to me that some of you may not have the apparatus to successfully perform this function of we call yawning. Let's see, Gemütlichkeit. Well, they always say it's undefinable, but basically 9 times out of 10 what it means is drunkenness. What it's supposed to really mean is this sort of ineffable feeling of friendliness and camaraderie and this warm glow that's created by people of like minds getting together and doing fun things that only people of like minds supposedly, theoretically, can enjoy. Harakiri. That means pulling the plug on yourself. It's a form of ritual suicide practiced by the Japanese. And let's see, hoi polloi. You don't. See, if you're a member of the entertainment community or a lowbrow Bulgarian who looks down on his betters, then you refer to the hoi polloi as Joe Sixpack. But otherwise, if you're a refined individual of elegance and grace, then you use the Greek term hoi polloi. Idée fixe basically means bats in the belfry. It's basically the same thing as an aficionado. It means a fixed idea. Imprimatur, it means it's cool. Like, because he has that blank card signed by the president, he has the imprimatur to do anything he wants. Infradignitatem, it means below one's dignity. In other words, vulgar. You could say something like, if you're lower class, you would say, oh, that's ignorant. And if you're middle class with aspirations to upper class stature, you would say, please don't do that, it's vulgar. And of course, if you're upper class, then you say, infradig. And if you're really, really trying to impress people, you use it in its full form, which is infradignitatem. Now, in media res, that's just a fancy way of saying it began in the middle. And in Hollywood, they have these things called motion pictures, and most of their motion pictures begin in media res. Folks aren't really very fond of following a story from the beginning all the way to the end. That is considered boring, and it will be referred to as an old-fashioned narrative. For example, although the famous and popular film Forrest Gump was, in fact, a conventional narrative, it did utilize, as a framing device, the in media res technique, in which he is sitting on a park bench and telling people about his life from the beginning, even though, oh, and he's bribing him with chocolates to get him to sit there and listen to him. Ugh, I'll tell you. And so it's really the best way to get Earthmen to do what you want them to, is to bribe them, preferably with sweets. Inamorata. It's basically saying, there's my little honey bun. She's my inamorata. In vino veritas. Whenever somebody says in vino veritas, what they're really saying is, I'm drunk. But in fact, what the term in vino veritas means is, in wine, truth. See, the thing about these primitive Earth brains, it's very easy to shut down their primate brain. Only a very few of them have what I will refer to as primate brain override, which enables them to overcome their superstitious fear of outsiders and adopt a transcendent point of view, which recognizes that the smallest event which takes place has repercussions all over the universe. No, instead, Earth people prefer to blunt their inhibitory forebrains, which ordinarily keep them civilized, by means of intoxicating it with alcoholic beverages, and hence the expression in vino veritas. With enough of this substance, the inhibitory forebrain begins to close down its shutters for the night, and people say things that they are very embarrassed to hear they said the following day. But of course, since everybody is in fact drunk, very few of them actually remember what was said, and so the whole alcoholic experience is basically an enabling technique for Earthmen to tell truths which sobriety would prohibit them from telling. Which is strange that the expression sober as a judge would enter the English language. First of all, a great many judges are in fact alcoholics. Second of all, the sober as a judge perhaps does not refer precisely to sobriety per se, but as in a sober demeanor, meaning a inhibited demeanor, a restrained demeanor. Now, when you want to criticize somebody for expressing this sort of admirable behavior, then you say that they are inhibited, but if you wish to praise them for exhibiting this behavior, you refer to them as restrained and calmly restrained. Ipso facto. No, it doesn't mean that the person you're talking to is fat. It means by that very fact. You must be very careful not to say ipso fatso, or people will think you're utterly ignorant as opposed to merely a social climber. Je ne sais quoi. Je ne sais quoi. It has a certain je ne sais quoi. It means, I don't know, an undefinable quality. Joie de vivre. Joy of life, basically. It means bubbly. Not bubbly as in, but bubbly as in, oh, I was just there, and I saw him, and I saw her, and they were nice. They just came back from their vacation. Oh, it was really terrible. Oh, it was wonderful. Kamikaze. Well, some people prefer not to use the expression kamikaze because it has currently fashionable but soon to be démodé connotations of World War II and Japanese fighter pilots attacking U.S. battleships with no mechanism to prevent themselves from committing suicide. It's sort of like harakiri in an airplane. So you might want to also learn the expression hell-bent for leather, which essentially is the American version of the same thing. A Katzenjammer. Well, it means the moaning of cats, but actually what it really is a headache brought on by a bout of intoxicated alcoholic stupefaction the night before. You see, many Earthmen would be constantly drunk. Their Lord Jesus Christ is in fact probably constantly drunk. I've never been able to figure this out. His blood is made of wine, and yet he's not drunk. How can that be? But anyway, many Earthmen would be drunk all the time if they could, and quite a few in fact are. But what prevents them from doing so is the fact that they must function the following day, and it's very difficult to function when your poisoned brain is still reeling from the noxious fumes produced by the alcoholic excesses of the night before. Well, a kibitzer. A kibitzer is a Yiddish term. It means a loudmouth Batinsky. Basically, it means some guy that pokes his nose in where it ain't got no business being poked, partner. And that's a pig in a poke. Now, kitsch. Kitsch is cheap bathos. I'm looking around to see if there are any examples of kitsch in this room. Fortunately, I seem to have eradicated all but one. This thing. Let me see if I can get a close-up on that for you. I think you'll want to see this. This is a prime example. perhaps not the best example, but a pretty good example of kitsch. Another good example of kitsch is that little bear with the nipple sticking out of its head. That too is a fine, fine example of kitsch. Well, I'm going to pause momentarily in my presentation, but I will be back very soon with more of alien etiquette. Greetings once again, fellow aliens. By the way, it may amuse you to know that when you're at these fancy cocktail parties, you can avoid imbibing their poisonous alcoholic beverages by asking for ginger ale, and perhaps they could spike it with or some soda water with some Angostura bitters. And then when somebody asks you, should they detect your subterfuge while you're not drinking, you can say to them something like, oh, doctor says I gotta lay off on the hooch for a while, or I got an ulcer I gotta take care of. Anyhow, there are maybe just a few more Earth expressions that I ought to render you cognizant of, so that you might perform well at these confabulations of the near great and want to be great as well as the great. And you can tell how important a person is at these parties, by the way, by the fact that they arrive very late, stay only for a few minutes, speak only to the most important and prominent individuals, and then make their departure. Unless, of course, they are recently recovering from a scandal, in which case they will bask in the glow of admiration which on earth only notoriety of that variety can bring. In the place of any actual signal accomplishments, many Earthmen will take a seemingly perverse pleasure in their infamy. Now, I was talking about kitsch. Another important term for you to know is la dolce vita, which means literally the sweet life. It's taken from a Fellini film in which, at the end of which, a drunken journalist rides a provincial woman like a horse, braying loudly all the time. Now, under the influence, of course, of that very same alcoholic beverage that I was warning you against. As a matter of fact, the reason you want to avoid these alcoholic beverages is that you may be susceptible to them, and you, in fact, may begin loudly braying things which should only be said in the company of your fellow aliens. Things like, oh, the Earthmen are all the same. One alien life isn't worth 1,000,000 Earth people's lives. That will cause people to look at you very strangely, unless, of course, you are, by profession, a performance artist. Now, La Dolce Vita literally means the sweet life, but what it really means is looking out for number one. And like he's living La Dolce Vita. He's a selfish bastard, basically. That's how they would say it in less enlightened circles. Locus classicus means the place I swiped it from. If you refer pretentiously in Homeric diction to the wine dark sea, of course, locus classicus Homer, then you are the ne plus ultra of sophistication. Metro boule dola. No, wait a minute. Let's see. Metro bulo dodal. Uh, Basically, it's a French expression. It means metro, job, sleep. Less refined individuals refer to that as same old shit, my eyes glaze over. Um, Modus operandi. That's just a fancy lawyer way of saying method of operation. Um, some police procedurals abbreviate this as MO, as in his MO is to leave fecal matter at the scene of every one of his burglaries. Um, Police procedurals, they take on this patina of fake sophistication by carelessly slinging about such terms. Mot juste, the right thing to say, a quip. Bon mot, same thing basically. Narrenship means ship of fools. Basically, we're all dummies on this boat. And in fact, try to resist the temptation of referring to Earth as a Narrenship, even though you may, after observing its inhabitants, feel precisely that. Noblesse oblige. Giving back to the mob the stuff that you took from the mob in order to fortify your position as king of the heap. Non compos mentis. Well, now, all right, again, there's this class distinction going on here because in the lower orders, the Earthmen will say, he's goofy, or he's nutty. And if they're middle class and pretentious, they'll say, he is operating at a diminished capacity, or he is legally insane. But non compos mentis, it's a lawyer term, means crazy. Non sequitur, skipping and leapfrogging, particularly in the context of a conversation. For example, when your guests are talking about the deliciousness of the pâté, it is considered ill form to complain that aliens have gotten a raw deal on this planet. That would be considered a non sequitur and would probably render you, in the estimation of the others, non compos mentis. Obiter dictum. It's a one-liner or an aside, like, oh, get a load of that décolletage. I really think she's trying to impress the wrong sort of people. That would be an obiter dictum. Olla podrida. Now, this is one that doesn't get used very often in polite company. It means a putrid stew. Pat Buchanan's speeches are an olla putrida of half-baked nationalist notions combined with crazy left-wing economic populism. Would be a good example of a way to delicately insert that phrase into a conversation about United States politics. O tempora, o mores, oh the times, oh the morals, or in other words, things ain't what they used to be. Now, a sophisticated Cracker Barrel way of saying this would be, well, you know, seems to me, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Outre. Well, it means far out. Like way out there, man. Like wiggy weird. Woo, woo, woo. Blah. Yeah. Paisano. It means a chum or a country person or a countryman. If you're Italian, it's okay to refer to someone as your paisano, but I'm not quite sure I would use that phrase in polite company. For example, you would not say, Henry Kissinger is my paisano. I think you would probably tend to use a more refined version of the same thing. You would say, myself and Mr. Kissinger see eye to eye on a great many of the important issues shaping the coming multinational world. Or if you're like attempting to utilize a form of contemptuous familiarity as a sign that you are intimately familiar with the person of whom you're speaking, you'd say something like, Yeah, me and Henry Kay go way back to the short pants days. But it helps if you're wearing a 10-gallon hat while saying this, because then people will think you're a Texan and that your colorful expressions of speech are merely reflective of your place of origin. You know, it seems to me like I ought to have this on a wider angle. There we go. That's a little more like it. So you can bask in the complete glory of the wrong hero. You know, in many respects, I'm a pioneer on this planet. I'm the first avowed alien. Of course, the thing is, my strategy is crazy like that of a fox, because when you say you are an alien, no one will believe you. It is only when you deny that you are an alien that people will become incredibly suspicious. And that leads me to my next phrase, which is persona non grata, which means unwelcome guest. The wrong hero is considered persona non grata at many of the nightclub establishments in the metropolitan Boston area. In other words, he has made himself a nuisance. Let's see, panem et circenses. Big Macs in television is what that translates to be in modern 20th century American jargon. But what it really means is bread and circuses. Panem et circenses. It's a more pretentious way of, in fact, saying bread and circuses. And what that refers to is the fact that the Roman people bribed their mobs with bread and circuses, which is not, of course, the circuses that had clowns and unicycles and dancing bears, but the type of circuses in which Roman gladiators fought lions armed with nothing more than a trident. And I'm not talking about a stick of sugar-free chewing gum either. Let's see. Par excellence. Tops. Be very careful how you use this word, though, because it is really one of the most pretentious things to say. Par excellence. And avoid, by all means, saying par excellence. That means it's very, very good. Or else you may become persona non grata. Pièce de résistance. It means a showstopper. It's like when an artist pulls out his pièce de résistance, it's sort of like, can you top this? Like when Jerry Lee Lewis set his piano on fire and then turned to Chuck Berry and said, top this if you can, and then followed it up with an unrepeatable ethnic slur. Now, do be advised that ethnic slurs are not considered to be appropriate in polite society, and as a matter, unless of course you are in the most intimate circles of power, and then it's the sort of buddy-buddy camaraderie that reinforces your position as one of the boys. But until that exalted place is reached by yourself, you may not traffic in ethnic slurs. Pied-à-terre, it means a town apartment, but literally it means a foot on the ground. Now, you know, it's very interesting because this is my pied-à-terre here in Cambridge, and normally I reside in Providence, Rhode Island, which is a nice little backwater, which is defiantly removed from the happenings in cosmopolitan Boston and sophisticated Cambridge. Paysaler means to go to the worst. It means the last resort. Like, well, if it were a toss-up between Bob Dornan and Bill Clinton for president, I think Paysaler, I'm going to have to vote for nobody. Plus ça change. The more things change, plus c'est la même chose. The more it's the same old story. Now, don't try to use this phrase unless you've mastered it. Primavera. No, it doesn't mean a spaghetti sauce with lots and lots of vegetables in it, so that the whole thing is basically a very unpalatable alla putrida. What primavera really means is as simple as spring. First life. Post hoc ergo propter hoc. After this, therefore, because of it. I think not. Pro bono. For the public good. You know, I had a dog that belonged to a law firm, and he worked pro bono, but that meant for bones. Pro forma, just to keep up a reputation. A lot of musical artists, for example, will put out pro forma records. They don't really have any business cutting any new vinyl or CDs. It's just that they have to keep up their reputation, so they come out with record after record of undistinguished, mediocre, original material and half-baked, ill-conceived cover versions. As an example, an encyclopedic knowledge of pop culture will ensure that you are able to hobnob with the masses, but an affected ignorance of such things will win you a place in the hearts and minds of the intelligentsia. Thus, it is in very bad taste to refer to the television show Wheel of Fortune when speaking to a refined crowd of individuals, since not one of them will dare to admit that they have ever watched it, because, of course, it is, in fact, perhaps one of the most degraded shows on television. Pro rata parte, or pro rata parte, according to a fixed part in proportion. Now, this is something that you don't get whipped out very often at cocktail parties, but hey, you know, I'm just trying to cover all the bases. Now, here's another one. It's incredibly pretentious. Qua, as in as. Well, Roseanne qua Roseanne is acceptable. It is only when she steps out of the boundaries of her accepted medium, breaking the fourth wall and participating in public events such as baseball games at which she sings the national anthem poorly and mockingly, that she is out of her realm. Quel dommage, I mean, that sucks. Quid pro quo is another way of saying tit for tat. Quondam, sometime. That's a really pretentious one too. The wrong hero, the alien and quondam comedian, or the wrong hero, the comedian and quondam alien. And another word, which, although not really foreign, but which has passed into accepted use, but which will aggravate and irritate people, will aggravate their worst tendencies, I should say, is quotidian, meaning every day. Reductio ad absurdum, reducing to absurdity. Well, so much in American culture is in fact a reductio ad absurdum that this phrase will in fact be invaluable to you. Sanctum sanctorum, it basically means a shrine or the holy of holies. Like, for example, anti-NAFTA sentiment is the sanctum sanctorum of wild card, third party, loose cannon candidates like Ross Perot. Savoir-faire, tact, knowing what to do. Yes, in crashing the cocktail party, even in the event, even though he was in fact persona non grata, he did observe a certain savoir-faire in the way in which he sweet-talked the door person into allowing him entree. Sic transit gloria mundi, thus passes away the glory of the world. Well, enough said. Sine qua non, meaning essential. Soi disant, so-called, self-styled. Manque is another way of saying that. Sui generis, unique. People toss around the word unique as though, in fact, it were not what it means, one of a kind. They say, that's the most unique thing I've ever seen, which of course is impossible, since if something is one of a kind, no, it cannot be more one of a kind, and it certainly can't be most one of a kind. So avoid using sui generis or generis as a synonym for really extraordinary, because when in fact it means really, really one of a kind. See what I mean? You can't say really, really one of a kind. It's either one of a kind or it isn't. Let's see. Tout suite, meaning immediately. Although a lot of people just say tout suite. You are. It means original. Like, Adolf Hitler is the Ur-Buchanan. Let's see. Ut multa paucis verba obnuntiam. I'm going to shut up now. Or, so that I may announce many words in a few. Ut multa paucis verba obnuntiam. I'm doing the opposite of that. I am announcing a few words with many. Vade mecum means go with me, but Henry Kissinger was Richard Nixon's vade mecum, constant companion during the Vietnam peace negotiations. Well, not really, but anyhow, I think I may have a few more of these terms to share with you. An abattoir is a slaughterhouse. Ad hominem. An ad hominem attack means you attack the individual rather than his or her ideas. Ad interim. Meanwhile. Just think of how pretentious it would be if instead of saying, meanwhile, back at the ranch, ad libi, it would be like ad interim, back at the compound, the Kennedy families. And let's see, a la mode, in the fashion, which is kind of odd because pie a la mode certainly isn't my idea of the cutting edge, but we'll leave that be. Al fresco has nothing to do with frescoes. It means in the open air. Alter ego, second self, like the wrong hero is the alter ego of I am forbidden to say. You may not know my true identity, for those who know my true identity can no longer be allowed to live. Well, just between you and me, since we're aliens, my alter ego is named Francis DiMenno. All the documentation states that, and so I am forced to take that name when cashing checks. Now, if you aliens want to send me some gold bars in exchange for this helpful advice I'm giving you, you can send gold bullion or silver. I'll accept silver. Platinum would be nice. That's one of my favorites. Or white gold, which is a combination of gold and platinum. Or Rolex watches or whatever negotiable earth currency you can scrape up. Just send it to Francis DiMenno, care of Cambridge Community Television, Cambridge, Massachusetts, 02139. It'll get to me. Amour, a love affair. Not to be confused with when the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie. That's amore. Animus. It means an animating or inciting thought or purpose, or it means animosity. Although Kissinger successfully completed the peace treaty, there was an everlasting animus between himself and the president nonetheless. Anno Domini, in the year of our Lord, a priori, prior to experience, previous to examination. Apropos, suited to the time and the occasion. So it would not be apropos for you to go to one of these fancy little lifted pinky soirees and say something like, I think Carly's my favorite of the Three Stooges. Arcana, secrets, mysteries. For example, the Roswell incident. Argot, slang, the use of odd expressions. Now, when you're talking about crooks and cops, they speak in argot, but computer wonks speak a jargon. We want to make that very important distinction. Because if you use the word argot inappropriately, then people will wonder. Artistes, professional singers or dancers, or in the United States, an artiste is anybody with artistic affectations, such as myself. Atelier, workshop. So much better to say, this filthy kitchen, instead of saying, this is the filthy kitchen in which I shoot my videos, you can say, oh, well, Shave 494 is my atelier. Au fait, familiar with the facts, in the know, cognizant. Au revoir, till we meet again. Or so long, sucker. Badinage, playful ridicule, very acceptable in the highest levels of power, sometimes not considered apropos in more sophisticated gatherings, like, Henry K., you son of a bitch, where'd you get that gut? You'll notice I'm using Henry Kissinger as my exemplar of a man who is at the very top of the corridor of power. This is not necessarily the case, however. He is a pretty good example, and since he doesn't mind any publicity, good or bad, I can be assured that he will not mind and will not sue me for libel, will you, Henry? Henry, old pal, come on, buddy. Listen, Mr. K, you and me, we go way back. We're old buddies, yeah, we're chums. Bagnos, houses of ill fame. They're sort of like seraglios, if you wanted to be really, really sophisticated. Bas-relief, a sculpture or carving in which figures stand out only slightly from the background. Sort of like my face, actually. Bastinado, an oriental punishment, beating the soles of the feet, usually with a stick. Yeah, these earth people, I'll tell you what, they come up with some really good ones. Beau ideal, the beautiful model. The wrong hero is the beau ideal of no one. Beau monde, high society, which hopefully you'll be hanging out with. Beaux-arts, the fine arts. I love to hang out with the beau monde, talking about the beaux-arts, with beaux gestes, magnanimous actions, with displaying my bel esprit, my wit and spirit, my brilliantly humorous persona, and showing off my belles lettres, my works of literary art. Hanging out in low dives and bowling alleys is in fact my bête noire, my object of abhorrence, my bugbear. I like to spend my time collecting bibelots, small artistic objects of art. Occasionally I will sit down to write a billet doux, a love letter, a lover's note. But, oh, lest you think I am too blasé, sated with pleasure in my pursuits, let me say that bona fide, in good faith, without deceit, I am, in fact, sitting atop a bonanza of creativity. Because after all, in spite of my somewhat humble backgrounds on an alien world, I belong with the bon ton, the fashionable world. Because I am a true bon vivant, an epicure, one who loves good food and living, a gourmet. I would never presume to break into a lady's boudoir, her private sitting room, without her permission. You might call me a sophisticated boulevardier, which basically means a sex maniac. And I am not one of the bourgeois, a middle-class tradesman, a town person. I do not render my hands unclean with money. If I were born in Spain, I'd be one of the caballeros, a Spanish gentleman, a cavalier. I'd have a cabana, a small beach house, and it would be filled with caches where runaway slaves could hide, perhaps. And I'd sit in a cafe, sipping my latte and displaying camaraderie, comradeship, loyalty, good fellowship, and avoiding the canal, the rabble, the riffraff, the unruly mob, the vulgar multitude. In fact, if I were to be thrown among such people, it would be a casus belli, a cause for war. I would become a cause célèbre, a celebrated case in law. Because really, my fate, my destiny is to engage in causerie, chats with say, the chargé d'affaires, not the ambassador, but his substitute. I would say to him something witty and refined, like caveat emptor, let the buyer beware, or you have the IQ of a ceiling fan, or your face looks like a giant lollipop to me. Or perhaps I would go to the theater and indulge in a charivari, a burlesque serenade. Or maybe it would be more appropriate for me to stay at home and work on my chef d'oeuvre, my masterpiece, my chief work, one which I'm most intimately associated with. Well, I don't know, perhaps that wouldn't be too chic. It would not display the type of elegance and good taste, the smartness and stylishness that high society so often demands. Well, I'm happy that I was able to be your cicerone, your guide, who conducts tours and gives information to the planet Earth. Soon there will be the ci-devants, the former occupants of this planet, once we take over, when that would be about circa, approximately, 1999 or so. If I could recruit you aliens to be my claque, my hired applauders at the theater, then even my various cliches would be considered brilliant bon mots, because my clique of cognoscenti would call me the most brilliant comedian of my generation. And that is comme il faut, as it should be. I would only discuss business matters with my most trusted confidant. My confrères would occasionally be given some inkling of my comings and goings, but in time I would have to give them a congé, a dismissal, because I am a true connoisseur of my own loneliness. A conquistador such as myself belongs either alone or as the chief instructor at a conservatoire. It would be a most embarrassing contretemps if I were to fail to land such a job. I would have to rely upon my cortege, my procession, my train of attendants, my retinue, to give me the confidence to overcome such an appalling setback. The coterie of my admirers would have to slap me on the back and heartily exclaim that I am really one of the most wonderful people in all the world. Just wait until I commit my coup. It will be the coup de grace to all the other boring, banal comedians on this planet. But perhaps the wrong hero is merely a cul-de-sac, and that perhaps my true destiny lies elsewhere. Because after all, I am a most debonair man amid the debris of a rubbishy 20th century society. When I do finally make my debut upon a national stage, I hope that the decor surrounding me, the backdrop, the decorative ensemble of my stage will be the appropriate one, deluxe. Otherwise, the denouement of my debut might very well be de rigueur, necessary for good form, not dernier cri, but de trop. But I would always find a way to start de novo, anew, afresh. I'm no mere dilettante. Although I may dress in what you would consider to be dishabille, negligent attire, I am in fact distingué, very distinguished looking. I'm sorry, I should say distingué. Occasionally I am distrait, as I appear to be in the closing portions of this monologue. If I appear to be absent-minded, it is because I am trying so hard to deliver this divertissement, this amusement for you, with a certain amount of the philosophy known as dolce far niente, which means it is sweet to do nothing, a certain pleasant idleness. Now, I am not one who traffics in double entendre. I prefer single entendre myself. My éclat, my brilliance, my notoriety, the certain sense of élan, my impetuousness in which I pursue my pursuit of the elite, the choicest part of society, well, it's difficult for an émigré like myself from another planet to insinuate myself in the citadels of the highest of high society, especially when I have a belly so big I look as though I am enceinte, pregnant with child. Well, you might refer to me, even at my advanced age, as an enfant terrible, because after all I am little more than a child who asks embarrassing questions, who always says the wrong thing at the wrong time, and who is a general nuisance. But en masse, in a body, my admirers will not succumb to a certain sense of ennui, boredom, at my pronouncements, if, as a matter of fact, my stay here on earth is not merely one of en passant, in passing. I would like to exist en rapport, in a sympathetic or harmonious relation with the earth people. Now, if I could get together an award-winning ensemble to give forth my literary output unto a somewhat unwilling world, if I could only put together an ensuite of works that would impress people with their connectedness as a set, entente, an understanding of my output would probably follow in short order. And I would have a rather large entourage following my doings. And that would give me entree to the highest society. Now, entre nous, between you and me, I'm basically an entrepreneur, one who, of course, is nearly bankrupt, but an entrepreneur nonetheless. Now, I don't engage in the act of espionage or offensive surveillance of other individuals. I always get permission if I wish to videotape their comings and goings, or at least I attempt to. Because the human race is really esprit de corps to me, and I speak ex cathedra, speaking from an office or a professor's chair, and exercising an official authority. Now, in my expose of Earth matters, I hope that the extravaganza of foreign phrases and brilliantly witty insights has, in fact, become a fait accompli, because I am very tired right now, and I wish this were done. But it's not. I still have about, I don't know. How much do I have left? 20 minutes or something? Maybe 30? 32. Ooh, that's tough, man. Well, I'm not all going to finish all this in one sitting, but at least I can finish this part of it, if I'm fortunate. I got to be at work at 5 o'clock, and it's 20 minutes to 4. Man, oh, Manischewitz, what a wine. Well, I hope that this thing wasn't a faux pas, a false step. I hope you regard it more as a fiesta, a religious festival. I am approaching the finale, the last act of this particular presentation. I hope I have been able to express myself with a certain degree of finesse. I am not interested in appealing to the flaneurs, those who lounge or wander aimlessly, the idlers, intellectual triflers all. No, I hope that with force majeure, irresistible force, superior power, that I may express myself fortissimo, very loud. So loud that the sound of my voice would cut through any fracas, any furor. And I hope that because of my force majeure, you don't merely take that as a pretext to accuse me of gaucheness. My genre, the class of work, the style in which I express myself, is practically unique. I am not a habitué of taverns or other low dives. I prefer to spend my evenings in quiet solitude, pondering over the works of the great, the near great, and the merely mediocre, who comprise the vast bulk of written literature on this planet. Maybe someday I will get an honorarium for my professional services, and that would enable me to put some money in the bank. Right now I'm down to 24 bucks until Friday, and it's Tuesday, and I got maybe $10 in my pocket, and I got to get a haircut. That's going to cost $7. I got to take 6 subway trips, and that'll cost me, $5.10 unless I can jump the turnstile. So really, I'm down to my last 90 cents here. So if there's any honorariums due to me, then please send them, care of Francis DiMenno, Cambridge Community Television, Cambridge, Massachusetts, 02139. And please make them out to Francis DiMenno. That's FrancisDiMenno. Otherwise, I wouldn't even be able to afford meals. I wouldn't even be able to afford so much as hors d'oeuvres. You know, I'm beginning to feel hors de combat, injured from this battle to make my ideas known. I come to a certain impasse, a blind alley or cul-de-sac, because of the many impedimenta, things which hinder me, which have been thrown in my path. You know, this whole thing is a rather impromptu presentation, at least this portion of it. And because basically I am incommunicado for the remainder of this show. If I wish to finish it, I'll be cut off from all outside communication. And if the phone rings, I don't intend to answer it, because I am in extremis, at the last extremity of this show. That is not the series as a whole, but just this particular evening's broadcast. And I wish I could find some ingenues, actresses who play artless and ingenuous roles in order to back me up on either side. I think maybe a blonde on one side and a brunette on the other. No, the brunette belongs on this side. She's the dark lady, and the blonde on this side, she's the fair lady. Because we got to, left is like Mallow bad, and right is like good. Bono. Anyway, in the matter of this presentation, I would like to say that the insouciance in which I am performing this, the careless unconcern or indifference, is highly appropriate to the subject matter at hand. In toto, altogether, entirely, and ipso facto, by the fact itself, the jus de prix, the witty sallies which I am delivering unto you, combined with the laissez-faire, not interfering, inactive way in which I'm sitting here, is basically the shining lavalier or crown gem in the crown of my presentation. Anyway, latres and penetes means household gods. And of course on this planet Earth, consumer goods are, in fact, the lares and penetes, household gods. A lot of people want little more in this life than to gain some Lebensraum, living room. living space. Basically, there are those who want to take and those who have nothing to give, and then there are those who have but who wish to protect themselves only against those who take without actually taking more from those who have little. I am not one of them. I'm one of the guys that wants to take. Anyway, you see by this legerdemain how I am able to confound your expectations and create humor ex nihilo. It is the lese majesté that I display in my malefactions against the sovereign powers of this planet that make me such a beloved figure on the entertainment firmament. And, you know, maybe I should get out of this comedy stuff because basically I am a littérateur, a literary man, one who engages in literature as a profession, a man of letters, and not a mere clown whose sole purpose in life is to tickle the sores of a fickle mob. Anyway, in this locale, perhaps I am doing the work that I was intended by destiny to fulfill. Then again, perhaps not. Perhaps a more appropriate locale for my comedy, which depends so much on a certain sense of malaise, is, in fact, New York City. New York City? Well, I don't know about that. Anyway, perhaps New York City would give me more material for my comedy, which is a melange of misalliances. Because, after all, my métier would be, in fact, the great metropolis. It would be my milieu in which the tiniest minutiae would not fail to gather my notice. Well, the mise en scène, the setting of this particular presentation, is in fact a rather grimy kitchen here in Cambridge, Massachusetts. My menage is not based in New York City like those of the other sophisticated entertainers. I am so sorry to say. You ever notice that most sitcoms are set in New York City, and the few that aren't have like weird settings, like Cheers was set in a bar in Boston, and Frasier is a radio talk show in Seattle. I don't know. Why is New York like this central hub? And then the ones that aren't in New York are in Los Angeles, because it's easier to shoot them there. And you know, the city itself is not incidental to the sitcom when it is in fact set in a different city. And yet, in some ways, the cities are considered interchangeable. Mary Tyler Moore's Minneapolis is only distinguished by heavy blizzards from any other city. Anyhow, that's an example of the minutiae which I discuss in the course of my attempting to indoctrinate you to the ways of the Earthman without necessarily implying either approval or anything of the kind concerning their deeds or misdeeds. No, you might say my modus vivendi, my mode of living at the time, isn't of the best. And sometimes that can result in a lowered morale. And perhaps I should declare a moratorium on this artistic work and attempt to find gainful, full-time employment. That would seem to be the motif of my entire career. Part-time employment and artistic failure alternated with full-time employment and absolute artistic bankruptcy. Well, you might say that I am the wrong hero, nay, outer space, born of an alien planet. But, you know, I am the ne plus ultra of alien comedians. And a certain noblesse oblige makes me wish to acknowledge all the other alien comedians, but since there aren't any, I cannot. The wrong hero is basically my nom de plume. I need a nom de plume in order to say things which in my regular identity I might be inhibited from saying. You might say that this mask and this hat is sort of like the inhibitory forebrain override in lieu of other such, like truth serum or in vino veritas. Well, anyway, I hope I have impressed you with the nuances of my brilliant insights. And, you know, for optimum viewing, you should have been videotaping this and watching it in very small segments, because nobody can sit and listen to someone talk for 2 hours, especially in the course of a presentation as poorly prepared for as this one. So, anyway, I would just like to say that I hope someday to be a parvenu, somebody who rises suddenly from the ranks. But perhaps my time is already gone. Perhaps I am passé, out of date. Perhaps my patois has a result of turning people off. Because after all, I do have a strong penchant for behaving in a alternatingly pretentious and yet lowbrow fashion. In fact, many people of distinction and breeding might consider me a mere peon, per se, or at best, perhaps, middle management personnel. Well, I wish I had a piece de resistance to offer up, but I don't. But I do hope that, at the very least, my piece was piquant, sorry. Otherwise there might be a pogrom against all aliens on this planet. Well, no one could ever accuse me of being a poseur, that is for certain, even though as an alien, of course, I have to constantly pretend to be a member of the human race, which in fact I am not. My life has been a potpourri, a medley, a hodgepodge of poor parleys, informal discussions of this kind. Prima facie, on first appearance, you might say that the wrong hero is non compos mentis. To that charge I respond, meow. Perhaps someday I'll have protégés who follow in my path. But pro tem, for the time being, I will have to get by on my mere puissance, power, force. You may say I'm merely a quasi-human or even a quasi-comedian, but I say I have that certain qui vive. I'm always on the lookout for something to happen. I'm a real raconteur, a person who can tell a good story and tell it well. In fact, that is my whole raison d'etre for existing. The fact that I have a certain rapport with my audience. In fact, my whole existence seems to depend upon a certain rapprochement with my audience, and someday perhaps my videos and writings will be sought recherché, sought with extra care. Perhaps someday people will have to reconnaissance you Cambridge residents who have had the prudence to videotape my recordings, and you will meet them in a rendezvous and exchange large sums of money with them so that they might procure these evidences of my middle to late period genius. Well, these certainly are things that I can put on my resume. But because, of course, many of my videos are risque, bordering on impropriety, verging on indecency and suggestiveness, I am a mere roué to some, a debauched or corrupt person. Well, the saga of my life will be one for the history books. Perhaps someday in a fashionable salon somewhere on the Rue d'Esprit or somewhere in a fashionable district of Paris, people will discuss my sang-froid, my composure in trying circumstances. Perhaps they will consider me a savant, a man of special learning, a person with savoir-faire, a quickness to perceive and do the right thing. Perhaps after I'm dead, a seance will summon my departed spirit. And I will, seriatim, point by point, explain to the earthbound mortals how I came to do what it is I do. But until that time, it's just about time for me to take a little siesta. I hope I don't sound too soi-disant, self-styled, pretended, would-be. And I hope that occasionally my sotto voce pronouncements don't render you frustrated in the attempt to hear me. Of course, if you have a television hooked up to a stereo and you have a control that increases the volume of the stereo, then as my voice lowers in volume, you can raise the volume on the stereo that your television is hooked up to. Well, those burps mean that I have adapted to earth waves sufficiently so that because my stomach is empty and filled mostly with air, I must expel that air, which means that soon I will have to seek out some nourishing victuals. And I will just, in fact, barely have the time to do that. Then I have to go to work. Well, first I have to take a shower. Then I have to go to work. I'll be there until about 11. I'll get home about 11:30, and I'll do some more work. I'll tell you. And, you know, I would like to say that if this is the first time you've ever watched an episode of The Wrong Hero in its entirety, that it is a mere soupçon, a small suggestion, a very small taste, a minute quality of the total output of The Wrong Hero. This, in fact, I believe, is my 88th 2-hour, let's see now, yes, it's my 88th 2-hour full-length feature. Actually, one of them was 2 hours and 40 minutes long, but the rest were 2 hours in length. Now, admittedly, some of them were 15 minutes long, and it had an hour and 45 minutes worth of old footage. But I am trying a new trend now, even though it is exhausting me beyond the limits of my endurance. I'm trying to do full-length, 2-hour, nothing but new Wrong Hero material features. And I hope you aliens out there appreciate the attempts to improve your vocabulary that I am undertaking on your behalf. Because, you know, I like to think of myself not as a mere vulgar, lowbrow clown, but as a spirituel person, one marked with refinement and grace, characterized by the higher and more delicate qualities of mind. Because I do not believe in merely sitting back complacently and allowing the status quo to overrun everything, like the Democrats, nor do I think that we should revert to the status quo ante, the way things were before the way things were, like the Republicans. Sub rosa, privately, just between you and me, I think that the summum bonum, the chief good of this planet would be if only men and women could resolve their differences. But then, sometimes I think that the summum bonum of our existence would be that perhaps men and men could resolve their differences. But then I realized that if only women and women would start fighting, men and men would have a good deal to do watching videotapes of such an event. And if you have any of women and women who are fighting, then I may be willing to purchase them for you as part of my anthropological studies of the ways of the Earth people for a not inconsiderable fee. In any event, I feel under the surveillance of the camera, that is the art of watching or overseeing me, somewhat hesitant to continue on much longer because the tempo of my performance has slowed down nearly to a dull crawl. I am not any longer on terra firma, dry land, solid ground, firm earth. Instead, I am approaching the mental state which I will characterize as terra incognita, an unknown or unexpected country or district. Such is my state of fatigue that I can barely keep my eyes open to finish up this presentation. This tete-a-tete, this private conversation between me and the camera, which, of course, due to the miracles of modern technology, may reach as many as, I don't know, 5, 6 people. I do believe that 25,000 people in Cambridge get cable television. Now, 1% of those are watching it, and that means I've got a whopping audience of 250. But of course, if only 1/10 of them are paying any attention to it at all, that means there's 25 folks sitting around watching this. And if in fact 1/10 of them have tuned out by now, then that means my total audience is probably 1%, 10% of that. 2.5 individuals. 2 drunks and a dog. That should be the title of my next piece. But, in fact, it's not. In fact, it might be appropriate at this time, since I have a little time to kill, to mention that the title of my next piece will be Anti-Hero. And it will be a summation of what the national media have said about the wrong hero, or what they would have said about the wrong hero if the national media were aware that the wrong hero existed at all. But let me finish that, the task at hand, and if there's any time, I'll tell you a little bit more about that. Now, the tout ensemble, the overall effect of the wrong hero's presentations is probably that of boredom, but really I regard such videos that I make as a tour de force, a feat of strength and skill. And now I'm starting to get back some of my old vim, vigor, mustard and pepper, and moxie, by damn. And so I'm going to just wind this down here by saying that I hope someday that the tout le monde, all the world, will know of the wrong hero. I have no vendetta against other comedians, but to me, they are mere bumps on a log. Their day is past. Soon the day of the wrong hero will arrive in full force, and they will be swept into what one historian has so eloquently referred to as the dustbin of history. Well, verbum sat sapiente, as they say in Latin. A word to the wise is sufficient. Of course, I have, in the course of 2 hours, spoken many words which may give you some idea of my true opinion of the Earth people, such as they are, who might be watching this to its bitter end. Well, the wrong hero is great. That is something that you cannot gainsay. That he has given a virtuoso performance over the course of this past 2 hours also cannot be gainsaid. I believe that in performing comedy one must display a certain sternness towards the audience and a compassion for their concerns, or vice versa. compassion for the audience and a sternness for their concerns. But vis-a-vis, as I am vis-a-vis you, as my face is leering on your television screen, I must say that my presence on this planet is largely one of viva voce, by word of mouth. I do not claim to represent the vox populi, the voice of the people, but although I am an alien, I do represent the voice of a person, the person inside of everyone, perhaps, that longs to question what is. When you look at water spiraling down a drain and you begin to hallucinate, that is the little person inside of your head who I claim to represent. My days of Wanderlust are over. Now I merely wallow in my own sense of Weltschmerz. But it has been truly said of the wrong hero that despite his many flaws, he is indisputably the avatar of the moron zeitgeist. And now I must take leave of you, just as soon you, my fellow aliens, will have to take leave of your Earth friends. I do believe I will turn on the lights. It is beginning to get dark out. So let me say this. When saying goodbye to your Earth friends, whether it's Ma'a Salama, or Sai Chien, or Au revoir, or Auf Wiedersehen, or Adios, or Da Svidanya, or Hasta luego, or Kwahiri, or a simple goodbye, farewell, take care, so long, see ya, don't forget to write, this is the end, bye-bye, have fun, take care, be careful, God bless you, be good, and if you can't be good, be careful, and if you can't be careful, name it after me. Or what do you say, sei gesund? It is always difficult to persuade Earthmen that you are, in fact, planning to depart from their squalid planet. Their primitive 1,600 cubic centimeter brains work painfully slowly due to the comparative lack of convolutions. So, when saying goodbye to the planet Earth, relay your message to a trusted dolphin associate and have him deliver it to the squalid and unenlightened Earth people. In the course of your stay on Earth, you may have to embrace, or at the very least adopt, many Earth customs which you consider undesirable. For example, the practice of drinking coffee. Well, I do not drink coffee. You see, I'm the wrong hero, and I don't need coffee because I already have a bitter taste in my mouth first thing in the morning. Instead, I drink 100% pure orange juice, which still bears the Purity Supreme label, even though Purity Supreme has gone out of business, so that should at the very least give you some idea of how old this orange juice is. It has been most pleasant enlightening you, my fellow aliens, as to the proper ways in which you might use your instinctive sense of good breeding and combine it with your sense of pioneering get up and go-ness, to forge new trails in the universe to the squalid, unenlightened, backward planet Earth, which even they themselves refer to as the third stone from the sun. I am the wrong hero, and although men call the planet Earth, I prefer to refer to it as terci, a poetic way of stating that it is, in fact, merely the third world from the sun. Earth is not really an appropriate name for this planet, since 3/4 of its firmament is covered with water. So terci might be my contribution to the planet Earth and its culture. Of course, you might call it exit 3 from the sun. It's entirely up to you. I guess it depends on what kind of supercharged rocket ship you're driving there, partner. Well, my time is done, and so I will bid you adieu. This is Cafe Cabaret. You have been watching The Wrong Hero in his presentation of Alien Etiquette. Tune in next week for The Wrong Hero as he presents Anti-Hero, a ship flexicon, in which he discusses in mind-numbing detail what the national media have had to say about The Wrong Hero, utilizing the conceit that the national media even recognizes The Wrong Hero. You are tuned to Cafe Cabaret. The show is produced by Francis DiMenno. Cafe Cabaret is broadcast on Cambridge Community Television, Channel 55, every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. This is Francis DiMenno, executive producer, saying good night.